Hi everyone, today Group 11 will present our tutorial that is Government Intervention at Airbus and Boeing.
Hi guys, my name is Izzah Atira binti Muhammad Mahdi, metric number 138320. Question 1. Briefly describe about the case. So today, I will share to you summary case on government intervention at Airbus and Boeing. Boeing was formed in Seattle in 1916. By 1970, the government of France and Germany created an agreement to form Airbus, which was supported by large government subsidy. Later, the government of Spain and Britain joined Airbus. By 1981, the four-country alliance had become the world's second largest manufacturer of civil aircraft. By 1992, Airbus had captured roughly one-third of the global commercial aircraft market because of Airbus launch the A300, which is the one of the best-selling commercial aircraft, and Airbus also created the A320, which receiving more than 400 orders before its first flight. Government support Airbus. Airbus has received 10 billion euro of subsidy and soft loan from 4 founding country governments and the European. Every major Airbus aircraft model has been funded in the world or in the part by government aid. Besides, European government have forgiven Airbus debt by provided massive equity infusion, dedicated infrastructure support, and funded research and development for civil aircraft projects. Airbus is currently a publicly traded company owned by the British, German, French, and Spanish. Lastly, European government support Airbus because of several grounds. Next, complaint about unfair government intervention. Airbus received 3.7 billion US dollar in the new subsidies and low interest loan from European member states. The WTO found the Airbus received approximately 20 million US dollar in preferential subsidies from European government. Airbus aircraft qualify as subsidy under the WTO Agreement on Subsidies and Countervailing Measure ASCM, and the subsidies were actionable because they caused adverse effect to international trade. So, under the ASCM, subsidy to specific firm or industry from a government or other public body are prohibited. Government support Boeing. US government has indirectly subsidized through massive defense contract paid via tax dollar. Boeing received more than 23 billion US dollar in indirect government subsidies in the form of research and development fund and other indirect support. Besides, Boeing is free to use the knowledge gained from such projects to produce aircraft. So, the new Boeing 787 Dreamliner is being built in collaboration with Heavy Industry Division of Japanese MNEs. They have provided 1.5 billion US dollar in a soft loan, which are only repaid if the aircraft is a commercial success. New aircraft from Airbus and Boeing. In 2007, Airbus introduced A380, which is an innovative aircraft with an upper deck that runs the entire length of the fuselage, and it can seat between 555 and 853 passengers, but depending on the seating configuration. At the same time, Boeing having successfully launched a test version of their Boeing 787 Dreamliner with a full efficient aircraft. To compete Boeing 787 Dreamliner, Airbus is working on a mid-size A350 types that will be delivered in 2013. Global financial crisis. During global financial crisis, Airbus and Boeing had suffered. Both companies were forced to reduce output and lay off over 10,000 employees. Airline grounded planes and cut routes in response to sharp drop in passenger traffic. At the same time, many airlines have cancelled or delayed new aircraft orders. For a longer-term plan, Airbus is reorganizing its global operation, outsourcing more manufacturing and selling all or part of 6 factories. Airbus and Boeing is gaining new customers from emerging market business. As a result, India has signed contract with Boeing to purchase military aircraft.
Question 2. Do you think EU subsidies and soft loan for Airbus are fair, and what is your standing? I think EU subsidies and soft loan to Airbus are fair because both of the company, Boeing and Airbus, get a support from the government. As we can see, the Airbus get support from the government, almost 10 billion of euro, and the Boeing get the support from the government, almost over 23 billion from indirect government subsidies. Next, Airbus got the loan from the 4 founding country government and EU. Airbus need to pay back the loan if they gain a profit. Same like the Boeing. Boeing get the soft loan from the Japanese MNES, that is Mitsubishi, Kawasaki, Fuji. Boeing get more than 1.5 billion in soft loan, and they only need to pay back the loan if the car is commercially success. In terms of government subsidies, Airbus get a huge equity infusion, dedicated infrastructure support, and finance R&D for civil aircraft project. And the Boeing company get the same like Airbus, that is, government give them infrastructure support, R&D fund, and they also get the support from the NASA and Pentagon. And they get the incentive total $1 billion. They also have a complaint about the government is unfair to the Boeing and give more attention to the Airbus. But the fact is, the European government give the Airbus debt forgive. The European government forgive the debt for the Airbus. That means Airbus don't need to pay the debt, and it's a huge amount. But we must know that the government also give a tax break to the Boeing, so it's just the same. Okay, so in my opinion, I strongly agree that the government being fair to both of the company, Airbus and Boeing, and they have to accept the fact that the government helped them, but in a different way and slightly different amount. And Boeing and Airbus receive help from the government. That's all for me for the question 2. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Muhammad Abidin. We will discuss about question 3. So the question is, do you believe that US military contracts with Boeing amount to subsidies or a type of government intervention? Basically, there has been intervention by the government in form of subsidies from the US federal and the state governments. So we will look into what is subsidies. Subsidies can be defined as the government grants monetary or other resources to firms intended to ensure the survival or success by facilitating production at reduced price or encouraging exports. This also includes cash, tax breaks, infrastructure construction, or government contracts at inflated prices. Next, we will look into how the government of United States assisting Boeing in terms of subsidy. First, Boeing has received more than $16 billion in federal research and development, which is R&D, subsidies from NASA and Department of Defense programs, and contracts for in-depth research and development. So this R&D program basically was regarding with composite material research and advanced tool software that help the company to build their aircraft production. Next, the R&D subsidies provided by the federal also help Boeing to transfer the technology used to produce composite materials to its commercial aircraft production. As a result, this has increased in revenue and sales of the Boeing aircraft. Next, the Boeing has also used Department of Defense testing facilities to work on the design and wings of the many of its civil aircraft. This has provided Boeing with competitive advantage and create disadvantage to their competitors such as Airbus. Next, Boeing also received a non-competitive military contracts, which was awarded at subsidized rates by the US government and which are transferred to its civil aeroplanes production. Other than US government, the Japanese government also or provided assistance to the Boeing, which the Japanese government and the Japanese Aircraft Development Corporation has provided Boeing with $1.6 billion in terms of launch support. And the Japanese government also funding for up to 70% of the R&D expenditures to Boeing risk-sharing partners. In conclusion, we can conclude that all the government intervention that have given to the Boeing has created an unfair advantage to the aerospace international market. And we clearly can see that this is not the best way to promote healthy competition, especially in the aerospace industries. Because, for example, the European Union, EU, has submitted several complaints to the World Trade Organization, WTO, on behalf of the Airbus because the subsidies received by Boeing was claimed to harm the interests of EU and Airbus. Therefore, the US government has taken action to remove a preferential tax rate for aerospace manufacturing in 2020. This has resulted WTO to allow the US to impose tariff on up to $7.5 billion worth of EU goods. And then the WTO also allowed the EU or European Union to impose tariff worth of $4 billion on US goods. So this is the consequences of the government intervention in this case. So that's all, thank you.
Hello, my name is Anis binti Abu Bakar and my metric number is 138303. I will be presenting question number 4, which is, does government intervention in Airbus and Boeing is good for the nations or the firm itself in the long term? Discuss. In my opinion, government intervention could be both advantage and disadvantage to this sector. Government intervention such as subsidies and soft loans can be benefiting to enhance economic growth and increase profitability to aerospace manufacturers like Boeing and Airbus. With this financial aid, Boeing and Airbus can continuously improve and have new technologies to increase network to the global commercial aircraft market by using financial incentive provided by the government. In the case of Airbus, having support from the government gives huge advantages in the long term as it provides research and development fundings which follow new technologies for civil aircraft projects. In the case of Boeing, with the help from US government, NASA and Pentagon, bring out new alliance with other countries and gain knowledge to produce more advanced civilian aircraft. The government intervention is not necessarily a welcome result considering it can reduce independence in terms of expanding business in the aircraft market and create trade war between these two biggest aircraft manufacturers. It might also bring potential risks which are monopolistic tendency in the market and subsidiary financial aid which may cause breach in law. In the case of Airbus, the risk of receiving illegal subsidies and soft loans are high considering too much government intervention. This may bring downfall in terms of productions of new aircraft and international trades. Moving on to the next point, the government interventions is good for the nation as it creates more job opportunity and develops healthy competitive advantages between these two aircraft manufacturers. With that being said, we believe there are more goods obtained than bad on support by the government as they lead the firm to be major aircraft manufacturer in the market and increase globalizations on the longer terms.
Hello, doctor and everyone. My name is Ma Haoyu. The question 5 is, please conclude the case by reflecting what you have learned from this case. Through this case, I learned the government intervention in economy has great beneficial effects on the country and the market. The fierce competition between the two origins, Boeing and Airbus, actually represents the competition between the United States and the European Union in the world civil aircraft market. To gain an edge on the competition, governments in Europe and the United States subsidize Airbus and Boeing heavily on each new model they launched. In the case of Boeing and Airbus, the trade of one can influence the action of the others. So, behind the fight between Boeing and Airbus is a battle of national interests. Both the United States and the European are willing to support their competitors to grow in the market. Both Boeing and Airbus have benefited from government intervention in the economy. Like Boeing, the United States government has provided Boeing with more than 23 billion in indirect government subsidies through research and development funding and other indirect support from the Pentagon and NASA. For Airbus, the European governments have foreign Airbus debit, providing huge equity injection, dedicated infrastructure support and research and development funding for several aircraft programmers. So even though there is a lot of competition between the two companies, there is a little bit of friction between them. But in the long run and in the big picture, the government's innovation in the economy has promoted the development of the states and the social market. It also improves people's living standards and overall quality. Is a beneficial influence.